Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm back to talk about the 100 episode 713 titled Blood Giant, which premiered Wednesday, September 9th, 2020 on the CW. I'm recording roughly an hour and a half after the episode has aired. Just finished watching The Corner, which came on right afterwards. Fixed up my notes for the episode, so now I'm ready to talk about it. So, huge spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. Very quick YouTube shoutouts to Elvis, Ibrahimovic, and Doe for your comments, for both your comments on my 712 video. Hugely appreciate it. But we are finally in the final 4 episodes. So 713 is also the 97th episode of 100 episodes. So it's really coming down to the wire. Anything can go. So let's talk about this. I'm not going to do an actual timer today, but I'm hoping it's not going to be more than 20 minutes because I also have to keep in mind that my memory is very, very short on my phone. So let's see what I can do. So huge tidbits. Let's get into that. Timeline-wise, this episode is continuing where the previous episode had ended off. So to use right into from 712, we are only sticking to Sanctum, naturally so. So that's something there. Episode reminder, I'm going to say, well, I guess Bellamy and Clark. We'll talk about that later. But the episode objective really is from Clark and the disciples, it's retrieving the flame. For everybody else on Sanctum, it's surviving the latest red sun rising eclipse thing that they have to deal with all the toxins and everything. So there's that. So that is leading into our 2 episode breakdown storylines, which is first one dealing with the red sun rising once again, the second that Clark and the others have dealt with since arriving in Sanctum, and the second storyline is reclaiming the flame, I'm calling. So with first storyline, as I said, we get the toxin invading Sanctum due to the eclipse that's happening. We get the form of those killer bugs coming in when the shield is brought down with the power outage that Amori brings up to give them inside an advantage. But the toxin brings about hallucination. So we see some faces from the past, some memories being replayed for us. In the form of Indra, past memories from Gabriel mostly, because all the other characters have the antitoxin, which prevents them from hallucinating and such. So there's that. So we do see a bunch of the citizens of Sanctum being forced to evacuate. Some of them seek sanctuary in the reactor core because of its sealed component, plus a lot of their loved ones are also trapped in there. A lot of it, though, that's kind of like the external obstacles of the episode, stuff that they really can't control, really. So the second storyline is really about reclaiming the flame. So Clark is forced to go retrieve the flame alone, while Bill stays in the center of Sanctum with all of her friends as her remaining hostages. And we see Gabriel offering afterwards to salvage the flame the same way that they would tend to the mind drives. And we got a little bit back and forth about that and how the process goes when Gabriel hallucinates Josephine, the original one. So there's that. But instead, when it comes down to it, while part of the flame is uploaded in that whole mind drive sequence, we get Gabriel destroying the flame completely by shooting it, and then he pretty much turns against him, claiming that the transcendent path that Bill is trying to go for shouldn't be the case. So there's that. Last moments of the episode, though, is kind of what I really want to talk about. It had me shouting, and I was kind of mad that I didn't record right away. It was the fact that Clark shoots Bellamy in the chest, so it looks like it was a kill shot. But again, the way it ended on a cliffhanger like that, we don't actually know. But she does it in order to protect Maddie's sketchbook that has all her memories from the flame that she was able to draw out. And yet Clark leaves the book behind before the portal or the bridge closes to the offline planet. And that's the last end of the episode. I have a lot to say about that. But it'll come a time for that. When it comes to characters, though, Indra, like I mentioned, we do see her while she hallucinates. She gets flashbacks of her mother bowing down to Shaheda the very first time around, and we kind of get that visual going on. So there's that. With Gabriel, we see him having flashbacks of not only when Josephine was first resurrected in that in that medical room, but also we see him interacting with hallucinations of Josephine, the original Josephine. So there's that. Through that, we do get, here's the thing though, they were able to explain why Josephine would be staying throughout the whole episode, because Gabriel claims that he could work under the effects of the toxin as opposed to Jackson. And at that time, they only had one dosage of the antitoxin, so he'd rather give it to Jackson, who can't work under the effects of the toxin, like Gabriel has trained himself to do so. So while he's under the effects of the toxin, he can still work to help create more antitoxin, but we get that conversation, or his one-sided version of the conversation with Josephine, which is just extension of himself. And because of that, we're able to get Gabriel's inner workings of what they could do with the flame and how they could restore it by using the technology with the mind drives, and how Gabriel was thinking of being offer himself as the host that would start the last war with the white portal thing, or be the one to take this test that Jordan thinks it's all leading to. So there's that. Now, with screenwriting, this moment would have been very different if we didn't have the whole hallucination, because if it's something in his head, we need a little bit more exposition of it being explained to another character. But with the fact that we had the hallucination working in our favor in this episode, we were able to see pretty much Gabriel have a conversation with himself, when us visually it's not with himself, kind of a thing. So that was something pretty cool that they were able to do there. With Bill, we have him claiming that Bellamy is similar to him in many ways. One major thing being the fact that all the disciples have grown up in the culture of being a disciple, while Bill and Bellamy have come from a different way of upbringing, where they grew up and lived in a world where they were ruled by their emotions, and how a lot of them were motivated by specific emotions, outruling logical thought, while the disciples have pretty much been the emotionless versions of humans as they grew up in that culture. So that's one thing there. So it seemed like Bill, if anything, Bill was trying to maybe groom Bellamy to be his successor, if it ever came down to that. But that was the impression I got from that. And then we got Conductor Doucette. He was dubbed the new Anders, which was very short-lived because, spoiler, he was killed in this episode. But we do see him a little bit more of the connection he has with Bellamy being brought up. I really like the fact that in this episode we do see the reunion between Murphy and Doucette, not in the sense of the character reunion, but more of the actors reunion, as Murphy, aka Richard Harmon, and Doucette, aka Jonathan Scarf. They were both in season 4 of Van Helsing, which I saw before this season aired. So it was very interesting to see the two of them just be on the screen together, even for brief moments. And I'm always a sucker for actor crossovers like that. So that was pretty cool to see as well. In regards to tidbits, though, I will say that the disciples showed to be a greater force than Shaheda and his immediate followers. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, because, yes, that meant that someone got the upper hand to get Shaheda, but then, in this instance, Bill. But then on the one hand, that means that Bill is a lot more of a threat than I would like. So that's something there. Like I said, Clark is the one who kills Doucette in order to protect Gabriel when Doucette was trying to make a run for Gabriel, who had a gun on Bill. So there's that. We have a confrontation between Nikki and Raven over the death of Hatch. And Nikki decides to spare Raven's life and have her live out her life with the guilt of Hatch's death eating away at her, because it seemed like Raven was about ready to die and be free of that guilt. And Nikki was like, nah, I'm not giving you the easy way out, kind of thing. So there's that. We do see a few more pages in Maddie's sketchbook where we see, I believe there was an image of Callie. I'm assuming that is from the viewpoint of either Becca or from the commander that came after her. There is a picture of Lexa, and then there is a picture of the stone room with the white light, or what looked to be the white light. So it's definitely giving us the impression that these are memories from the flame. Also, this episode is where Jackson officially meets Gabriel for the first time, based off how they were interacting with each other and how they initially greeted each other. So that's something there. And also this episode is when everyone is aware that Gaia is missing and not with the other group they thought she was with. And it appears that the disciples were not the ones behind her disappearance, which means that one of the disciples had gone rogue and took Gaia elsewhere as their hostage. So I'm wondering if that was intentional, if that was just in the moment type of thing. If that's the case, who is this rogue disciple that happened to get their hands on Gaia in that moment? So that's something we hopefully get answers for in the next episode. So there's that. I'm not going to go into ship status because it's just a flurry of like emotions for that right now, but let's go into the most shocking moment of the episode. I think for me it has to be really the fact that Clark shoots Bellamy in the chest. I mean, I would like to think that she wouldn't do it and it's just one of those struggles, but the fact that she did it, first off, was you can't kill Bellamy just after we just got him back. So it's like, that's pissing me off right there, as you know, but it's also the shocker that she actually pulled the trigger. And then it's just the I don't know if I should mention it now or just mention it later. I'll probably mention it later. But yeah, it's just that whole scenario. Plus, I'm also having the question here. Why would Clark shoot Bellamy in the chest if she did not intend to kill him? Why couldn't she just shoot him in the leg? Why couldn't she just shoot him somewhere that wasn't a lethal shot? Why in the chest when she pretty much took Jackson with her? She took Gabriel with her through the breach. There's no one really there to provide medical attention if she was going to leave Bellamy behind. So it's like, why would you shoot him in the chest? I'm also finding it whenever there's a lot of these shows, and I really got to keep that in mind when I'm writing for my own someday, is if you really have to use lethal force, which I know some story scenarios are going to go that way, but if you really want to claim that you don't want to kill anybody, but you have to use lethal force, why is it automatically shooting them in the head or shooting them in the chest or giving them a lethal shot that kills them? Why not just shoot them, if you really have to, in a spot where they will survive and it's just a flesh wound or something? It at least will slow them down in the moment, kind of a thing. Right? Like, that's something I still don't get, and maybe that's something I will always have to keep with me when it comes to writing stories that involve any violence of any sort, because that's kind of where the action and drama come from, sadly, for a lot of genres. So I'm just wondering if anyone else has noticed that, and if anyone else gets frustrated when something like that happens. But yeah, big shocker, Clark shoots Bellamy. It's like, yeah, I definitely shouted at the TV when that happened. So parallels, let's just move right into that right now before I really go off on a tangent. Parallels, first one I originally thought was of, it came up a lot between Gabriel and Josephine in this episode, and is pretty much what I'm calling needing a Nightblood in order to stop the enemy. So specifically in this episode, Josephine, acting as Gabriel's voice piece, tells him that he could be the Nightblood that takes in the flame and offers himself to do this last war test that they're thinking is going to happen, and be the spokesperson for humanity and bring them to transcendence. This could easily parallel in season 3 when Clark had to find a willing Nightblood in order to take in the flame and go to the City of Light and stop Allie from within the flame. But instead, Clark ends up making herself a Nightblood temporarily so that she can be the one to go into the flame to stop the enemy with them. So I just thought that was something of a parallel where you need specifically a Nightblood in order to stop this particular situation. So that's something there. Huge parallel, and other people were going to say, is the standoff between Clark and Bellamy when she specifically has a gun pulled on him. This was first seen in episode 411 when they're in the Second Dawn bunker before Prime Fire first hits. In that episode, Clark ends up lowering her gun and going with Bellamy when they open the door. This time, that's the opposite case, but the setup is pretty much the same. You also get a similar setup in the backdoor pilot in 708 between Cadigan's kids in the flashback, so that's something as well. Another parallel is, and it's a frustrating one, but it's the fact that Indra doesn't kill Shaheda again when she had the chance to do so herself. The first time she does this is in episode 709. Instead of just killing Shaheda right off the bat, she leaves and lets the faithful, and she believes the faithful will be the one that will turn on Shaheda and kill him, as opposed to him killing all of the faithful followers. And she does it again in this episode. Instead of Indra had the chance to take the killing blow to Shaheda, kill him once for all, but instead she says, "You're already dying anyways, I'll just let you die from that," instead of her finishing the job herself. Naturally, when that happens, you know he's going to survive. Until I see him actually die on screen by the hands of one of the characters, I'm always gonna believe that he's still alive and he's escaped somehow. So that was a parallel that frustrated me on that level, because Indra, once again, was put in a position where she could have killed him and ended that big threat, and yet she doesn't. And the thing that bugs me, though, is that it's not like Shaheda's would be Indra's first kill. Indra has killed many people as a warrior. So it's not like I would understand if this was meant to be her first kill and she's hesitating because she doesn't want to step over that morality line. But Indra has killed over and over again. So it's like killing Shaheda would not really make a difference. So it's like, why is this the one kill you cannot do when you just killed 4 disciples to save yourself, kind of thing? If it was because he was defenseless, then like that's pretty much stupid, because Shaheda has done many horrible things to her in the past and in the present. So it's like, what's your reasoning here? So that's something there. But let's move on to top 3 favorite moments. I actually have more than 3. Some might overlap with each other, but here it goes. The first one is actually the confrontation between Raven and Nikki. Yes, I was a little worried about like what Nikki would do to Raven, but I definitely felt like it's something that both characters needed to hear what was said, and the emotion behind it was very, very, very compelling. But also, after that scene, when Nikki comes out of the reactor door and Clark, Murphy, and Amori see this, they immediately, without a second of a doubt, they go in rushing to check on Raven. And when they see that she has crumpled up and she is crying in her grief, they all huddle around her and give her their support, which I'm all for. Only downside is Bellamy is not there with them. He's so far removed as a disciple that he doesn't go there to not only follow them to see what was up, but then to not even be there for Raven to give any emotional support. That just shows how far over the edge Bellamy is, which is the downside for this bonding moment. But I'll leave it at that. Another favorite I did have, and a lot of it was featured in the 2 sneak peeks that they revealed before the episode, and it was Raven and Murphy. It was great to see them on scene together. It was also great, their interactions with each other and how they kind of joke and make lighthearted moment of pretty much summarizing the whole scope of the season of like what they each had to deal with on their separate planets, and kind of like commenting on each other's actions in that. So it was pretty interesting there just to see that between them, because they had such a huge growth in dynamic since the very beginning. So it was just fun to see as well. And I know that there's Mervyn fans out there as well. So like I could see it, even though I do love Murphy and Amori. But I will definitely root for Raven and Murphy scenes, just like I would root for Murphy and Clark scenes. So there's that. Another favorite I did mention briefly was the Gabriel's hallucinations with Josephine. It was just very interesting to see how they shot that. It was also interesting to see how Gabriel reacted to these hallucinations. It was interesting just to see what they were talking about as well, because she is still technically just an iteration of his own mind. So it's just pretty much like him having a conversation with himself in a way. So it's just very interesting to see how that was all done, and then just me from a screenwriting standpoint trying to break down why it was interesting to me on that way, as opposed to just being a fan and why it was interesting, because it's another familiar face that we get to see who has died. So like that's something as well. Plus she's also dressed up, and it's like she's dressed up in a world that's not really the norm to be dressed up. So it's just like a huge contrast right there to show that she just really did not belong in the location she's been set with. So that's something there. Another favorite I did like was Indra working with Shaheda in a way to defeat the disciples. I was actually surprised that he gave Indra the heads up when the last disciple went invisible on her. I mean, I'm happy he did, because that meant Indra would have survived. But it was just great to see that Indra was able to kick ass while still under the effects of the toxin. And then she was given the antitoxin when Gabriel and Jackson came in. And then she did a Peeved moment that I will talk about in a moment. But there's that. And my last favorite, I will say, is Bellamy and Clark. Not because of the fact that Clark shoots Bellamy, but just for the fact it's my favorite just because they actually have an emotional scene together. Yes, they're on opposite sides with each other, but the fact that they have this impactful scene together was enough for me. Whether they're on the same side or on differing sides, the fact that we pretty much have them almost in tears as they fight for their specific beliefs in the situation is just, yeah, it hurts, but I still like it because I've been missing it this whole season due to Bellamy's absence. So it's like I got to get what I can get. But that leads to my peeved moments, and the biggest peeve I have is the fact that Clark shot Bellamy, and yet she did not save the sketchbook. The whole purpose of Clark shooting Bellamy to begin with was because he was going to give Maddie's sketchbook over to the disciples who would give it to the shepherd. Clark shot Bellamy, and then she shot 2 other disciples, and she could not shoot the last disciple. So instead of rushing to grab the book or rushing to attack the last disciple, she then runs into the bridge breach instead, leaving the sketchbook behind, leaving Bellamy bleeding on the floor, and leaving 1 disciple alive. What was the sole purpose of shooting Bellamy if you did not leave with the sketchbook? Like, what the fuck? I mean, here's also the thing, too. If she had left with this sketchbook, at least that justified, in a way, why she shot Bellamy. Because chances are Shaheda would have still been alive, and they would have used him to get the memories from his head from his time in the flame as a replacement for the sketchbook. Right? So then it's like, but also if she took the sketchbook with her, that means Bill, who is with Clark and the others, would have easier access to it than if it was on another planet. But then he already has access to Maddie. So you know what I mean? So the fact that Clark did not even escape the planet with the sketchbook that she shot Bellamy for is another level as to why I'm pissed off over the fact that she shot Bellamy in the first place. So that's something there. And the other peeve I had is the fact that, mentioned before, Indra left Shaheda alive, thinking he would die from his stab wound in the stomach. She left him alive. Chances are he's going to still be alive due to that 1 disciple who is probably going to understand that they need Shaheda in order to get the memories to open up the portal or whatnot. So it's just like a missed opportunity where she could have killed her biggest enemy and just left that loose end tied. And yet it was completely foregone when she could just killed 4 disciples. What's killing Shaheda? Like that, when that's no skin off her teeth for a warrior like her. And yeah, so big peeves right there. But let's move on to random questions very quickly. First one, like I mentioned, if Clark's whole purpose to shooting Bellamy was to protect the sketchbook, why the hell would she leave it behind? I mean, she killed Bellamy, or killed, quote unquote, killed Bellamy for nothing. We're left under the impression that she killed him. Again, we just got him. He can't be dead. But like, what was the whole purpose of that if she didn't actually leave with the book, like I said? So there's that. I'll leave with my other question now. Is Bellamy really dead? I would like to think that the show is not harsh enough to not just give me Bellamy, only take him away from me again permanently. Just because also I don't want Bellamy dead, just because I need him to redeem himself for becoming a disciple before the show's end in a few episodes. So it's like I kind of need that redemption arc from him. So that's another reason why I need him alive. But then also the fact that if he's dead, that means Bellark is never, ever, ever going to be a possibility. And I don't need Clark having the fact that she shot Bellamy haunt her for the rest of her life. So it's like, that's something there. Another random question is, I kind of answered it, but I'm hoping that I remembered it right. But are there any more disciples on Sanctum? From what I recall, there should only be the one that that Clark left alive in the stone room during that whole shooting Bellamy and the other disciples, and she had one left because she didn't have the bullet. But is that the only one left on Sanctum, or are there other ones scattered elsewhere that maybe were not with this group following Bill? That's something there. Another question is, why would Bill keep Earth offline in the anomaly stone system? Like, what purpose would he have that labeled as offline? Is it because of the whole radiation thing? Was it just because he didn't want people to have the option to go back to Earth if they came to Bardo, kind of a thing? So that's something there. And my last question is Nikki now, quote unquote, on our team, or is she still an enemy to us because of her vendetta against Raven, or is was this confrontation with Raven meant to be the end of Nikki's whole revenge storyline? Because she is the leader of the Legion's prisoners, so I'm kind of wondering, where does she stand in the whole grand scheme of our characters? Is she a friend? Is she a foe? Is she a frenemy? What is she? So that's something there. But let's move on to predictions very quickly. Based off the promo for 7/14, we are told that the offline planet is Earth. And I guess I put that in part of the question, but it's confirmed that the offline planet is Earth. I know a lot of people were speculating and theorizing about that, so glad you guys were correct. It looks like they're survivable now, so maybe it actually has been years since. I mean, we know it's been 125 years for Clark and the others to travel to Sanctum. So we know in that sense that's how long it's been on Earth at least, but we don't know if it's been a lot more time. But it seems like they're able to breathe Earth's air again. Plus, it also looks like the bunker is still intact, at least the arena portion. But I can't remember if it was only the hydro farm that was burned up and not the whole bunker itself. So that's something we got to check back into. But again, like I said, we do see Bill, Clark, and her friends that she was trying to find. They're now in the Second Dawn bunker, the arena specifically. There's flashbacks to the events of the arena. It looks like Gaia is among them as well. It also looks like, the way it was cut, it looks like we're going to see Octavia going against Shaheda. I don't know if that's two different shots just cut together, make it seem like they're opposite each other. But then we also see Shaheda in possibly in a Disciple helmet, just because with all the graphics around his face, that's what has me thinking. And then we also hear Clark specifically saying, one quote of, "Everyone we care about is here," here being Earth, and then also saying, "I will not lose anyone else." So that's also one question there. If everyone that we know and love from the characters is on Earth, aside from Bellamy, but she believes he's dead at this point, what's stopping them from just staying on Earth? Do they really have to go back to Sanctum? I mean, maybe Maddie might want to, but, is there really anything tying them to Sanctum? What gives? So that's something there. The synopsis, though, for the episode reads that this is the directorial debut, I believe, for Jessica Harmon, a.k.a. Nyla. I'm not sure if it's directorial debut, but she is directing this episode. So that is something there. And the synopsis reads that Clark and her friends reckon with all that has happened, only to find an unexpected threat looming. Pretty sure unexpected threat is going to be Shaheda, but then the question comes from, how did he get there? So that is something in itself. But otherwise, I am excited for this episode. Also, I think a great little tidbit about this episode is I think they shot this one as the 15th episode, even though they're airing it as the 14th. So let me just double check that very quickly. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. If I'm incorrect, I'll correct myself on broad screen regardless. But I think that's pretty cool as well. This season in itself had a lot of episodes being produced out of order for some of them here and there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see them back on Earth again. It'll be I'm just wondering if they just kept the set of Earth for all this time, since it's been 2 years since we've technically been back on Earth for these characters. So I'm wondering if just how much of it we'll see or bring callbacks to. But otherwise, that is pretty much it, guys. What did you guys think of this episode? What did you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and opinions about all that good stuff. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. The link for that is down below. I reblog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all that good stuff, all found in one place. Go check that out. Little more organized, a little more detailed for WordPress links. But again, everything is all in the description box below. I still have to catch up on it. I am finished my semester after the 18th. So for the 15th and 16th episode, it will be during my 2-week break between semesters. So hopefully to get things a little bit more updated between Tumblr and WordPress during that time. And yeah, so just be on the lookout for that. But otherwise, that is pretty much it. Also, I haven't really decided yet if I am going to call on one of my classmates to do something special for the series finale. I still have to decide timing-wise. It's just final 2 weeks right now is a lot of things are due, a lot of things are hectic, so it's like I'm lucky to just have this little brief moment of time just to watch the episode and to do the video and like get my moment away from school. But yeah, I hope you guys tune in next week to see what I have to say about that episode. Till then, guys, this is Mel, wishing you all a great day, great week wherever you are. Please be safe during the pandemic and please wear a mask. But otherwise, take care, guys. Bye.